Hey guys, Quasi here. So today we're going to be building this Vue.js Vue Router based Modal system where if you click on a button, it's actually going to redirect you to the link, and then accordingly you're going to have the Modal pop up. And you can close it, and that's actually just going to redirect you back to whatever page you were on. And then of course, if you just type it into the address bar, it's going to pull it up and have this nice animation. So without any further ado, let's get into it. All right guys, so as I mentioned previously, we're going to be going over this dynamic or static routing based Modal in Vue.js. So basically we're just going to be building that as it was shown, and then we're going to be going with static content for the actual contents. We're not going to be doing any form of Ajax requests or Axios, or we're not going to be messing with anything like that. It's going to be straight to the point as far as the Modal. And then all you're going to need to do this is npm and Node.js, Vue CLI version 4, because we're going to be using Vue UI and the Vue create command, and then just a basic understanding of JavaScript and Vue. I'll be going pretty in depth, but it's good just to have a baseline knowledge. So with that being said, let's get into the tutorial. Do Vue create, and then whatever project name you want. There can't be any capitals or spaces in this. And then just hit enter. It's going to do it. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to want to manually select features. And you can go ahead, we don't need a linter, and all we need is Vue Router. So it's going to look like this. You're going to do Y for this, so we are going to use history mode. And then just default for all the other settings. It's going to go ahead and initialize the project. All right guys, so the project has been created, so all I'm going to do now is run Vue UI, which is going to launch the GUI manager for Vue. You're going to want to go here and go into Vue Project Manager and then import. You're going to want to find your project and then click import this folder. And then after you're in this screen, just go down to tasks, serve, and then you're going to run it. And then after that compiles, you're just going to hit open app. So it's going to open up this screen, and obviously we don't need this image, we don't need this text, we don't need anything from this page. So what we're going to do is hop in Vue, or our Visual Studio Code, excuse me. We're going to go into components and then just delete the hello world component. So after that, we're going to need to go into our home view, which is the view we were on, and then you can just get rid of this entire scripting element. So after that, you're going to go ahead and create a styles.css file here, and then we are going to link to it in our index.html. Oh, excuse me, we're going to go back to home and get rid of the hello world image there, and that's going to give us that successful build. So once we're in here, what we're going to want to do is just link to the style sheet really quick that we just created. And then after that, we can go ahead and go back into our style. So all this is going to contain is some minor code. So we're going to set the background color to 00F0, which is just going to give us a nice like off-white. And then we're going to create the button code. So for the buttons, we're going to make them a nice rounded button. We're going to give them like a nice blue background. Excuse me, that's going to be a hex. And then most of the other stuff is just like getting rid of or overriding the default styles, and then we're going to transform the text to uppercase, and then this is just sort of like adding some additional styling onto the text. So we're going to make it bold, which is 700. We're going to make it a 16 pixel size, and then giving it padding, because right now the button's actually going to be extremely small. And we're going to transition the box shadow for 250 milliseconds. So then once we're done with that, we're just going to explicitly say that the cursor is going to be pointer when we hover over it, and that when we focus it, we are going to do a box shadow of 0, 3px, 6px, and then RGB coloring for basically a little transparent black. And this is actually going to be in the description so that you don't have to type this entire box shadow out. Then once we're done with that, we're actually going to be done in style CSS, so just save, and then we're also going to be done in the index. So we've already got most of that set up. If you would like, also go ahead and delete this image element. You can create a button really quick, just with like test content, and then we can go back into our project and it's come out. So obviously though, there's an issue with the border. So really quickly, we are going to go back into styles.css and we're going to do border none to get rid of that default styling with Chrome. And now we're going to have a nice button. It's going to do drop shadow when we focus on it. So now making our home element, we're just going to get rid of this. And then we get to start doing some styles. So we're going to do really quickly, or excuse me, sorry, we're going to go to our components and create a new modal.vue. So this is going to be our main modal code. This is going to hold most of the structure and all that. So we're going to do just a new component. We're going to create a div. And we're going to give this a dynamic class. So basically this is just going to assign the class depending on what the value of one of our properties is. And it's going to be titled open and binded to open. And just so that we don't get an error, let's go into our script, and just in here we're going to do props open, and that way when we import this component later we won't have any form of issues. And now we're going to do an h1, and we're going to give this a class of title. Then we're going to create a paragraph with a class of content, and these are all just styling classes. This doesn't have any effect on our logic. And we're going to do a div with a class of actions, and then inside of it a button with a class of close. This is just going to say close, and then we're going to give this a slot name equal to, hold on, let me just cut off the slot, and the name is going to be equal to content. And then you can just go ahead, copy this, paste it, and we're going to call this title. So now we are pretty much done with our base HTML for this element. And we're going to create a scoped style in here. And we're going to just apply some properties to the modal. So we're going to give it a z-index of 99 or whatever is appropriate for your project. This is just going to make sure that it's displaying over all your other content. And then we're just going to explicitly say that it is white in case the div is assumed to be something else. And then the box shadow, which again, this box shadow will be immediately in the description, so you can just copy this out. You don't have to type out the entire thing. And we're just going to apply all of these stylings. And then I would recommend just copy pasting that in. And then we're gonna make the modal fixed. So basically, we want, if the user happened to click the button and they're scrolled down on the page, we want it to be that they're gonna stay scrolled down and that they're still able to see the modal. They don't have to scroll all the way up. And after that, we're just gonna give it a top of 50% and a left of 50%. This is gonna center it by then transforming it. And we're gonna transform it negative 50%, negative 50%. So basically, what we're doing is we're setting the top to 50% and the left 50%, but if we just set it there, the top left of the object would actually be in the center, which we don't want. We want the center of the modal to be in the center. So these two negative 50% are negative 50% of the actual object itself, so that's gonna push it and then it'll be centered on our page. Just some other minor elements in case a margin is applied by default. We're gonna give it a margin of 0. We're gonna give it a width of 55 of the view height. Now this is not going to be responsive, but an easy way to fix this would just do a media query and on mobile or something give this a wider width. And then we're going to give it a height of 40%. And then again, just to keep with our round theming, we're going to give it a border radius of 6 pixels. And then we're going to add in the transition. So the transition property is going to be the top, and we're going to do a duration of 900 milliseconds. And then we're actually done with the main modal class. And we're almost done with all the CSS for this project. So all we have left is modal, and if it's not having the open class, we are not going to display it at all. And then .modal.open. So if it does have the open class, we're going to play an animation of fade up 250 milliseconds. And we're just going to go ahead and define this using @keyframes, fade up. And all we're going to do, this is really simple, we're going to do from opacity 0, top 53%. And then we're just going to send it to opacity 1, top 50%, which if you remember is what we declared the top as in our main stylings. And then the last thing we have to apply is just the actions so that our button will always be at the bottom of our modal. So we're just going to make it an absolute positioning, make the bottom of 0, left 0. Now you might be wondering, why are we going to do left 0? Well, what we're going to do is do a 100% width and a 56 pixel height. And then we're going to set it as a flex. So this is going to help with centering it, or if you wanted to align it to the left or the right, you could do that. But I like the centered button, so I'm just going to do justify content center, which is going to center it on the x-axis, I believe, and then align item center, which I believe is a y-axis, but I have trouble remembering it with flex, honestly. And now we're actually going to be pretty much done with Modal. So all we're going to do is come into the home, and we're going to do we're going to add a button for testing purposes, which we're going to use in a minute. And when you click it, we're going to do open is equal to not open. So it's just going to inverse the open property. And we're going to come down into our script, and we're going to do export default and data, which is going to be a function because we're inside a component. We're going to return open false, so open by default. And then we are going to go ahead and import vmodal as it's spelled from @/ which is just an alias for the source directory, components / modal.vue. So now we're going to have it imported, but if we actually used it in our template here, we actually wouldn't be able to right now. It would return an error. And that's because it's not registered right now. So we need to register it as a component. And with the ES6 syntax, you can just do vmodal, and you won't have to set a value for the key. And up here we can do v-modal, and then bind open to our open property. So that's binding the property open, or the prop open, to the data open inside of our home.vue page. And now that we're done with that, all right, sorry about that, guys. So one thing I did forget to mention on modal.vue, make sure to apply to this top level div a class of modal, and that's why our stylings weren't applying. So once that's fixed, you're gonna wanna go ahead and create a template, and inside of there, you're gonna wanna do your title, whatever you want. This is just a test run right now, and we're gonna do slot equal to title, and we're gonna do a if statement of open. So only display this if the open, and this is actually not required as far as displaying, because obviously remember it won't display, but this is just prevent any errors with data not being fetched later. And then what we're gonna wanna do is content. We're gonna do my content, and then go ahead, come into here, and you're gonna be able to toggle this by hitting this button, and you're gonna see your title and content. And obviously once it's off, the button's not there, everything's hidden. So next, what we're gonna do is actually fix that button so that we can implement it. So what we're gonna wanna do is go back into modal.vue. We're gonna add an @click is equal to cache emit. So we're gonna emit an event when this button is clicked, and the event name is gonna be close. And all we have to do on here is on our modal element, we're gonna listen. So v on or @ close. And we're going to do similar to what we did on the click earlier, and we're going to do open is equal to false. And now if we go back to our modal, open it up, we can actually close it using that button. But as you'll notice, we actually don't have any of the routing implemented. So the next part of this is going to be adding the routing. So what we're going to do is go back into our project. But as you may notice, we don't actually have any routing working. So what we're going to do is go back into our project, and we're going to start working on getting routing implemented. So what we're going to start off with doing is opening up our index.js for our router, and all we're going to do is give this home.vue some children. We're going to make that an array, and in it we're going to have a path of Modal. So this dot here means that it's a dynamically fetched or dynamically matched route. And we're going to do no name on this, and that's actually all we're going to have here. And now we can go back to home, and we're going to add two methods to our data, or not to our data, to our script. So we're going to do a created method, and then we're going to do a watch method, or sorry, a watcher. On our created, we're going to run check Modal, and at our watch element, we are going to watch the route property of our object. We're going to get the 2 in the from, and all we're going to do here is run this .check Modal, and actually, really quickly, we're going to add this to that as well. So we're going to be running this .check Modal twice. And then obviously we need the method of check Modal. So we're going to do an object of methods, and we're going to add check Modal. And this actually doesn't need to have any arguments fed into it. And all it's going to do is if the route we are on has the parameter of Modal, which we just established we are going to have for our home element, we are going to just really quickly log the Modal error message, or that we are going to be displaying a Modal. And then we're going to add an else of a no Modal frowny face. And now, if we can actually see this in action right here, you're going to hit Control-Shift-I. That'll pull up the console. And as you can see, we have some previous errors from not having the Modal function established, but we should be clear of that now. So now if we refresh, and after saving that, what we're going to go ahead and do is go back into here and make sure that this has a this prefix before it. And we're just going to clear the console, refresh, and as you can see, no Modal. But if we added just a 1 here, as you can see, it's detecting that we fed this argument in, and it's going to show a Modal. And obviously this Modal isn't linked up to the routing yet, so don't worry about that. And then inside of our data, we're going to add the contents of our Modal. So what we're going to do here is add a Modal contents object. And this is going to have 2 different Modals. So we're going to do an info Modal, which is going to be this is information. And then content is going to be info to be passed to the user. And then the other Modal we're going to add is just a success. You can add as many as you want. Obviously, you could have these loaded in via AJAX requests. You could do tons of stuff. But for the time being, all we're going to do is this. It's going to give you a success, the title, content, the request being completed. And then below the Modal contents, we're going to do a current Modal, which I'm going to set to info because I want that to be the default data loaded if there was some weird instance where the Modal was opened. But you can set it to just empty or whatever you want. And then we're going to go back to the if statement here, and we're going to add this .modal contents, and then we're going to do this .cache route .params.modal, and that's going to make sure that and this if statement is going to make sure that we have an actual existing thing. So if we go to /info, it'll load successfully, and if not, it's not going to load the Modal and won't show the wrong information. So what we're going to do inside of here is in the success, we're going to do this .open is equal to true. And then we're going to set the current Modal equal to just the route params of Modal again, as we established before. And now we're going to actually edit this template. So instead of just showing the static content in here, we're going to match it to the array. So we're going to do Modal contents, current Modal dot title, and that's going to display us the title of the current Modal. And then we can do the same thing with content. And if we navigate back here, you can see that because we set info as a default Modal, even though we're on 1 and it, as you can see, it detected a Modal and then it redirected us, it's going to show this. So we've got info to be passed to the user by default. And the reason it said no Modal is because we added the check and it knows that 1 isn't a real Modal. And now we're going to head over to watch and we're going to watch another property. And now we're going to head over to the watch once again, and we're going to add the open. So every time the open property is modified, and again, the open manages whether or not our Modal is open. So if we are changing it to a value of false and the Modal has been declared in the URL, we are going to push the route slash, and that is going to force the Modal to be empty. And also we're going to add here this dot open is equal to false. So if that check fails, it won't open the Modal. And now we are done with most of the logic. So what we're going to go up here is, instead of having this toggle, we're going to delete that. And we're going to add in 2 buttons, one labeled info and one labeled success. All right, so now what we're going to do is head up here and set a click function of cache router dot push. Or excuse me, we're going to call the show Modal function, which we haven't created yet, and we're going to say info. And now we're going to do the same thing. I'm just going to copy paste this, obviously with success this time. We're going to go down to our methods and create the final method of this tutorial. So that's going to be show Modal, Modal name. Or you know what, we can just simplify this to name. And we're going to do this dot cache router dot push name, and that's going to push the whatever we have put in here. So we're actually going to do just like that. And we're going to go in here and we're going to add a dot catch, and this is going to prevent any errors from coming up. And this can have whatever callback function you want. I just don't want the console logs to be running errors, and we should be complete. So now if I click info, it's going to come up with the Modal. If I hit that, it's going to close. If I hit success, it's going to come up with the Modal again with the message of success. And I can navigate around, I can do whatever, and I'll still have my Modal pop up. So I hope you enjoyed my first video and first tutorial on how to make this dynamic Modal, and enjoy the rest of your day.